All right, today we're talking with Chip Webster, who's with the founder of Unity and Service Incorporated. So, Chip, you've done a number of things over the years in business and nonprofit world. So, take us back and tell us about your background.
All right. Well, I went to college and majored in retail and went to work for the world's largest retailer called Sears. Some of you may remember Sears,
Oh wow, yeah.
and worked my way into the headquarters and was offered an opportunity to leave and go with a smaller company. And I could see the bureaucracy building up at Sears,
Uh-huh.
and I took advantage of that. I still don't know how to spell entrepreneurship, but all these windy roads led me into my own businesses, which were publishing independent phone books, selling vending equipment, and I had some partners in the independent phone book business, which were great guys, but they didn't understand cash flow. And you may recall a company called Ameritech, which was one of the baby bells. They wanted to buy us, and they gave us a great offer, and my partners went sell, and so I called a friend of mine in Jacksonville who'd been house counsel at Save-A-Stop, the company in and that I had left Sears for. And he told me about this thing then it was called Tech, now it's called Vistage.
Huh.
And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I'll do that for a year or two till I find a real job. And I became a Vistage chair here in the Tampa Bay market,
Uh-huh.
and managed to build a really successful set of groups. Um, you may recall when Checkers Drive-In was growing really fast.
Yep.
They were in my group, and Herb came to the group and said, "We're running out of money. I may have to declare bankruptcy." And the group rallied around him, got him financing, and then talked him into going public and saved his bacon. Discount Auto Parts, you may remember that company.
Yeah.
It's now Advanced Auto Parts. That was another one of my members, which we worked with his going public. And then other big names were like Ring Power. Lance Ringheaver was in the group. So
Oh, yeah.
people like that, we would get together once a month and spend a day or half a day working on what are the biggest opportunities that they could take advantage of. And then uh, um, every other month, we would have a speaker come in. People like Peter Schutz, the guy who turned Porsche around, Clark Johnson, who built Pier 1 Imports
Hmm.
from under 100 million to over a billion. He retired, and after he left, we know what happened. But um, just really interesting people talking about what they did to build their businesses. And then I would meet with each member for 2 hours in between each meeting. So I learned more than they did. Then eventually became
Yeah.
president of Vistage, Florida, and we had 900 members and 42 um, facilitators and about 72 groups across the state. And to spend time with all these entrepreneurs, having been an entrepreneur, it was like a gift. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And then I retired.
Can you explain a little bit about Vistage? Like some people may not have heard of it before. I knew some guys that were in it, and I remember looking at it at one point a few years ago.
Uh,
But is it mostly like uh, mostly for CEO types, or do they have different levels of it?
they have different levels.
Okay.
It started out with being CEOs, and you put together a group of 12 to 15 people who get together every month. And I have a group. The group I founded is still getting together almost 40 years later. There's some groups in California that are in the 50s, second generation
Didn't
people
realize it'd
joining
been
the
around that
groups.
long. Wow.
Yeah, it started in 1957.
Huh.
And um, it's really a place where you can come and talk to people who have only one agenda. They don't own part of your company. They're there to help you see your business through a different set of eyes. Somebody once said nobody can see their backswing. And when you come to a Vistage meeting, you're going to be with people who are going to tell you the truth. Unlike, employees, it's not that they don't want to tell the truth, they just are afraid to sometimes, or afraid that if they say something like, you should eliminate my department, then they're not going to have a job.
Right.
So, yeah, just real gut level conversations. And then it evolves into personal life. Somebody once said when I got out of college, if you go to work, leave your personal problems at home. Well, what I learned is the person who shows up to work brings everything with them.
Yeah.
And so we would discuss divorces, kids are in trouble. You know, I can't think of a subject we didn't talk about
Right.
in a in my Vistage groups as a chair.
So it's
And
essentially a
so you
mastermind, right?
yeah, exactly. But then the real advantage is you have a paid professional running it, and then they come and see you once a month. And I had three titles for my members: rabbi, priest, and paid pain in the ass. Because I would come and say, at the meeting you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z. What have you done? So one of the things that's so great about the Vistage model is that we hold each other accountable, and that really moves the dial for people.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I would, anybody listening, I would strongly recommend getting into any kind of a mastermind. I've been in a number of them over the years. Sometimes you outgrow them, or sometimes people come and go.
Yeah.
They come together, they break up, whatever. But mastermind groups are phenomenal, especially when you're a solopreneur or a CEO,
Yep.
or you find yourself, you feel like you're alone on an island with nobody to talk to. Um, when you're a CEO, it's tough to go talk, vent
It's
to your
lonely at the
employees
top.
about something. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very lonely at the top.
Well, I learned that when I was in the directory business. I had a great sales manager, super guy. We would sit and, brainstorm together, but I realized there was some strategic things I got him focused on, and he would take his focus off running the sales team. So, you just, and nobody can see it from your perspective. When you own something and all your net worth is on the line, um, a lot of people don't understand that unless they've been in the same position.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, well, hold that thought. It's time for a good spot for a break. We'll be right back. All right, back talking with Chip Webster from Union Service. All right, Chip. So you had a phenomenal corporate background, and thanks for sharing the information on Vistage. I know I've known some people that have been in those mastermind groups at Vistage, and I've seen and heard a lot about it, but I had no idea it had been around that long, like since 1957. That's incredible. So
Yeah.
yeah, highly recommend being member of. I know people that are members of multiple mastermind groups. They spend a lot of time doing that stuff. Nothing like having your own group of folks to bounce ideas off of and mentor. Okay, so tell us about union service.
I had observed over the years that the sense of ownership in the country, uh, the detachment, has been growing. Pew does a study every year. In 1964, 77% of the people thought the country was going in the right direction.
Hmm.
In 2025, it was 17%. If you and I were running a company, we would either be bankrupt, in jail, or fired with those kind of results.
Wow. Yeah.
And I realized that when I was traveling in my RV, I did 5 loops of the US in my RV, literally four corners.
Well,
And because we have kids in all four corners, and you'd go to an RV park, you spend a couple days there, and you start talking to people. Where did you get your RV? Where do you get your tires? All the RV stuff. And then we'll kind of drift into what's going on in the country many times. And they'd be complaining, and I'd say, well, it's our fault. And they'd look at me like I had two heads. This is a democracy. We elected these people.
yep.
It's our fault if they don't do what we want them to do and don't act like they're focused on their political party in the next election. They're not focused on what's best for the country in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
Only we can change that by electing people who have the right values. And so I began to think about, well, how do we change this? And you may have noticed during COVID that the barriers between people have increased. Uh, People went into their silos and they only listened to one TV station or one um, cable channel, and they only talk to people who agree with them. I'm sure you've heard of your friends who won't go to Thanksgiving with their family because of the political differences. It's
Oh
sad.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's really sad. And so I realized that, the only way we're going to do is break down those barriers is by working together. As you know, I'm chairman of the board of Tampa Bay Watch, which is a great nonprofit that does all sorts of wonderful things in Tampa Bay and restoration, education. And on the board, there are people who would never vote the way I do. Uh, and that's okay
Hmm.
because we've we have not dehumanized them the way we humanize people who don't agree with us
Hmm.
sometimes. We're all part of something bigger than ourselves, and we're trying to make the Bay better. And I realize that really breaks down barriers and helps you respect and appreciate different perspectives. So I started thinking about what can we do to break down these barriers? And one is take it, and in the book it talks about what does a responsible citizen look like? And then the second is go volunteer, turn off the TV, turn off your computer, go outside and volunteer. Habitat for Humanity, come plant oyster reef balls with us at Tampa Bay Watch. There's a lot of towns that have Paint Your Heart Out, Daytona Beach, where they go find houses that need to be painted. I mean, there's a million things you can do with people who are different than you, uh, and you learn to humanize them. We're all basically, if we took all the people we know, 80% of what we want is the same, maybe even 90.
Oh yeah.
But the media and the politicians take the 10% and use that to put wedges between us,
Yes.
because it
Yeah.
gives them power and it's killing our country. Um, and
Yeah.
so that was my motivation. The other thing is, um, when we were traveling, the amount of litter and stuff along the highways, just especially in California, where I'm from originally, was heartbreaking. To see how poor the roads were, and you'd go to a rest area and it would say $1,000 fine for littering, and literally the trash was piled up to the bottom of the sign. Um, and I got the impression that there's some people who just think they're renting this country. I think there was an Air Force general who said nobody ever washed or rent a car, and
How true.
so we need people to have sweat equity, and so universal national service. You turn 18 and you work for the country for a year. When we were in Caldwell, Idaho, which is just west of Boise, we were out walking on a reservoir, and we came across this marker, and it was built by the CCC, that's the Civilian Conservation Corps that Roosevelt created
Yep.
in 1937. As it turns out, that reservoir is what allowed there to be farming in that valley because it's
Hmm.
very arid. But they take money water out of the Snake River, and then it can grow vegetables and plants. Many of the national parks were built or improved by the CCC. There were dams built by the CCC. So
Hmm.
I think if somebody gets out of high school, most kids at 18 have no idea what they want to do.
Right.
Uh, um, Go to work for the country for a year in a different town, so you see a bigger part of the world. You were in the Marines. I've got to believe that being in the Marines and going to different parts of the country kind of opened up your view of a greater country.
Absolutely. It's a maturing
And so
process too, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. And I would say that if they want to go in the military, then that's great. If the military will accept them, that counts. Um,
Right.
so it's just the idea is to get out and break down the barriers and start humanizing each other and work together for something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
You and I know that right now one of our major problems in our country is loneliness. And a lot of people feel alone. There's some studies where something like I think 12 or 15% of the people have no friends.
Hmm.
Well, open up the door, go outside and go. What I did when I was in Chicago, when I first uh, went to work downtown, I didn't know anybody. I just picked up my basketball and went and found a pickup basketball game. And there was a whole social group that came out of that.
Yeah. I think there's a the phones and social media is so tempting. You think your friends are in there. And you have the video game generation too. They grew up on video games, and they have friends that they play video games with that they've never met in person, to live in different parts of the world. And the idea of you know becoming a member of the Rotary Club or the Elks Club or going to the entrepreneur meeting every other Wednesday. Um, just is a foreign concept to especially the younger generation. But I mean, even people my age don't go out to those civic organizations or get involved in those places anymore. The TV and social media and the phones are just too tempting and seemingly too easy.
Yeah, and I think there's real psychological issues that we're dealing with because of that as a
Oh,
society.
yeah, there's no doubt. So, what are some of the other things you're doing with Unity and Service?
Well, it's mostly working, getting people to go to work in um, nonprofits to break down the barriers.
Hmm.
It's relatively new. I have a website, and my goal is to generate enough revenue that we can run national ad campaigns, promoting getting out of the house, promoting volunteering, promoting what a responsible citizen looks like, and promoting a universal national service.
Hmm.
Those are the
Yeah, I would think that just me thinking about this as an outsider, everybody knows that if you're turning 18, everybody knows, well, I could go in the military. Well, I know everybody knows what the Peace Corps is.
right.
I know people that have served in the Peace Corps. Great thing. And but beyond that, a lot of people like, is there a one-stop shop where you can go and try to find some kind of volunteer organization that's gonna allow you to go
There's
work
a
with them for a year? I mean, it's
yeah,
probably a matter of finding it.
AmeriCorps. You can look that up,
Mhm.
and they're across the country. My challenge with AmeriCorps, which is a great program, is that one half of 1% of the 18-year-olds are doing it. So that's not breaking down any barriers.
Right.
Um, that's why I think universal, everybody serves, um, creates a common bond. When the British left Singapore, they were very vulnerable and they put together required military service for everybody, and they all joined. And I've seen some videos of guys that were in it, for 40 years or 50 years, and they had Sikhs, they had um, Christians, they had Muslims, all these different subgroups that all worked together to protect Singapore.
Hmm.
And now, fast forward 40 years later, I said, I never would have spent any time with a Sikh if I had not been in the military with him. And now we're friends. And
Right.
that just, once again, breaks down the barriers.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, what is AmeriCorps, anyways? Like,
It's a federal program that has programs across the country, teaching. I have not spent a lot of time studying it. I mean, I've studied it, but I can't give you a lot of super details other than it exists. And it's
do
striping.
a lot of these are volunteer organizations, but there are some of them that might pay you a stipend or something, right? Or you get free housing and free food if you're living somewhere else. Is that correct?
I can't answer that because I don't know for sure. I think AmeriCorps does have some programs that pays, but I don't know the details.
Hmm. Yeah,
Maybe
especially
you
some of the federal ones. They've probably got the money, but
right.
and I think there is a legality issue there. What like they have to call it a stipend. They can't pay you by the hour, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
I forget what the difference is, but they call it a stipend.
Yeah, I think we're working on the details of, yeah, this is evolving, but required or universal national service, um, credit towards like a military thing, credit towards buying a house, credit towards education,
Mhm.
um, ways of encouraging people to participate, but also to reward them.
Yeah, and then there's another twist to that is, and gosh, I can't remember the name of the nonprofit, but there's been more than one where they were military nonprofits where they were taking veterans coming out of the military and they're like, hey, we'll give you a stipend and you go you need to go you go work for a nonprofit in the community you want to relocate to. And so
Really?
yeah, the nonprofit would get a military veteran basically for free for a year, and and the veteran got to plug themselves in. A lot of times they're going back home, but they still might not have that network. Or I want to move here. So what
Mhm.
a great way to plug yourself into a community. You're volunteering at a local nonprofit there for about a year. Or maybe the benefit is
Absolutely.
you decide, you know what, now that I've been here for a year, I've decided this isn't really where I want to live. So now I've
Right.
answered that question. And the military nonprofit would get funding to pay for the stipend and would sponsor veterans to go into the volunteering at these places for a year and city of their choice kind of thing, or at least places where they had relationships set up. So it was a great idea. I can't remember the name of it. I mean, because it's been several years, I'm not even sure if it's still going. But there were a number of veteran nonprofits doing that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Working with Star and working with the retiring special ops people, you realize the transition is significant. I think, I switched from Sears to Save Stuff. Okay, new company, but military to um, the public or private institutions is really significant. I mean, you've done it.
yeah, yeah. And oftentimes your military service took you away from where you grew up, so you basically disconnect from that network.
Right.
So if you're going back to your hometown, you think, oh yeah, I know. Well, everybody else has moved on. You got to reestablish
Yeah,
those
right.
networks again,
Yeah.
or you may stay where you're at, where you get out of the military, or you may go to a different town that you want to live in, or maybe going back where your spouse is from, or something like that. So reestablishing or starting those networks over from scratch
Right.
is a tough, and it takes a while.
Yeah.
And you're
Right.
not going to do it sitting on the phone or the computer or watching TV. You're going to have to get out there and meet people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like for example, have you ever heard of 1 million cups?
1 million.
1 million cups. It's the idea
No.
was the guy who you and Kaufman have being from Kansas City, the Kaufman Foundation in Kansas City,
Right.
big nonprofit,
Right.
owner of the Royals and all that. Somebody from the Kaufman Foundation came up with this idea. We're going to call it 1 million cups. So every Wednesday at 9 a.m. across the world, entrepreneurs get together at a predetermined location and they have a local business owner entrepreneur get up and talk about their business. And
Wow.
and you can and the idea is the 1 million cups is we're going to get up to 1 million people having a cup of coffee together every Wednesday. And so pretty much any town you're in the US and maybe places even other parts of the world, there
Right.
is if you look up 1 million cups, you can go and find a location near you. And I used to go to the original location when I was living there in Kansas City. Living in Daytona Beach now. I've taken my son to the 1 million cups event here in Daytona Beach a few times, and he's met some cool people going to those things. And he didn't get it at first. He's like, "What? I don't get this. What?" And he actually has been to a couple meetings without me, and he's met some cool people at those places. So a phenomenal networking event is just another example of a way to network and get out there. And so it's literally just like from 9 to 10. In the one in Kansas City was huge, and the one in Daytona Beach is really small. And
Right.
they always serve coffee. You get a free cup of coffee or throw a couple bucks in for a donation, and then you get to meet usually a local business owners getting up there talking about their business, and the room's
And
usually
that's great. Networking is what makes things happen. I
mm-hmm.
can remember moving to Tampa knowing nobody and starting my Vistage practice. And, I joined everything I could to get, to get leverage to meet people. And Tampa was a great town. They were very welcoming, and in a very short period of time, I had my group up and running.
Yeah. So, if somebody wants to find out more information about you and Unity and Service, how would they go about doing that?
Unityandservice.org is the website. And you can reach me if you want to talk. Start with an email to chip@unityandservice.org.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in making the country better.
Awesome. Well, Chip, I'll give you the last word. I usually like to ask something along the lines of if you're talking to somebody on their way out of the military spouse, maybe they don't want to
Mhm.
go get that corporate job and work in the cube farm. They want to get into business and business ownership, entrepreneurship. What kind of advice comes to mind?
Well, I will say that going into work corporation is initially comforting, and you feel safe, but entrepreneurship is where the real freedom comes. I didn't understand that. I graduated from college thinking I wanted to be president of Sears and work my way up in the corporation. And once I got outside of the big corporation, I realized just how much freedom there is. I can remember more than one time I had to write checks to all my employees and I didn't take anything out that week. That's the price, but over time, it paid big dividends. And so, you can't steal second standing on first. There is a risk, take it. And, you know, eat Campbell soup for a while, and eventually you'll be able to eat Chateaubriand.
Awesome. Well, sage advice, Chip. I appreciate that. Good luck with your latest venture, Union Service, and thanks for being here. Appreciate you sharing your story.
Joe, keep up the good work, man. You're doing great stuff. Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, Chip. Thanks. We're out.